Hi, this is Alexander Scott, a member of LANS, presenting this week's edition of our updates. Before we continue, a reminder to please visit our website at jalans.org to view more party material, or follow us on social media. Our Twitter handle is @lans_JA. First, we will begin with the national crime situation. Now, on Friday, the 5th of November, the Senate passed the Emergency Powers Amendment Act of 2021. The Jamaica Gleaner reported that the act, while being passed without any amendments, was passed despite opposition from PNP senators, in particular Senators Crawford and Bunting. Now, in voicing opposition to the act, Senator Bunting noted that the use of the state of emergency as a crime-fighting tool was currently before the courts, and he hoped that the amended act was not going to be a pretext to attempt to resume the use of states of emergency as a crime-fighting tool before the courts have had their chance to make a ruling on the issue. Mr. Bunting also noted that the laws, that is the Emergency Powers Act and the Emergency Public Security Act, were both passed immediately prior to World War II in order to deal with extraterritorial conflicts. He then went on to highlight that the government is again promoting and passing legislation which he does not think is in the best priority of the Jamaican people. Government Senator Natalie Campbell Rodriguez, however, in expressing support for the act, stated that the government would not shy away from the act of governing, and that, quote, "We must enforce the seriousness of law in Jamaica. As a people, we cannot continue to complain about lawlessness but not support strong consequences," end quote. This was while noting that organized crimes and organized criminals are fueling the high rate of violence in the country. Senator Crawford disagreed. He stated that these actions by the government betray the fact that their crime-fighting plans, have not been well thought out, and this is evidenced by the fact that the murder rate in the country continues to go up year on year, and that the government continues to be wedded to the same process that has been shown to have failed. Now, this move by the government is something which must be both watched closely and called out. It seems to be clear that the government is intent on using the state of emergency as a crime-fighting tool, and that they are not willing to wait on a court ruling to that effect. That is, they're not willing to wait on the courts to either say, yes, you can use it, or no, you can't use it. They want to use it, and they want to use it now. That being said, the excuse of using the state of emergency as a crime-fighting tool does not hold any water, especially when we see for ourselves that for the period in which they had total use of the state of emergency as a crime-fighting tool, murders across the nation skyrocketed. And we also saw that once the court injunction was laid down and the state of emergency in those areas it was imposed was lifted, the quote-unquote successes were immediately lost. All that is to say, crime, and more specifically violent crime, did not appear overnight in this country, and it will take more than brute force and the detention of young black men without charge for months to end it. To deal with crime, more focus needs to be put into community building. More focus needs to be put into social care, and more focus needs to be put into education, as well as the area of police training and creating a force that has the faith and trust of the populace at large. More than anything, though, the cure for the crime problem that plagues the nation is to deal with the powerful individuals who are protected by the politicians. Crime and politics in this country go hand in hand. Crime and big business in this country go hand in hand. Big business and politics in this country go hand in hand. And unless the target is moved from the ghetto to uptown, where the true financiers of crime will reside, we will continue to have this spiraling crime rate where it just gets worse and worse and worse. We must insist that the state of emergency is not used in the fashion that the government wants to use it, because we all know it's only going to be directed towards poor black people. And we must instead demand that those in power hold those who finance and benefit from crime to account, and not those who are in reality the mere pawns of those who 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 finance the politicians and their shenanigans. Next, we turn to the environment and climate issues. On the 1st of November, the Prime Minister Andrew Holness delivered an address at the most recent staging of the United Nations Climate Conference, COP26, which was held in Glasgow. In his address, the Prime Minister called on historically major carbon-emitting nations to play a more active role in both reducing their carbon emissions and global carbon emissions, as well as making more technology readily available to poorer nations as they seek to make the transition from high carbon economies to low carbon economies. The Prime Minister also noted that with climate change set to affect small island developing states the hardest and the earliest, the historically major emitting countries need to increase their NDCs, that is, nationally determined contributions, which are things like emissions reductions targets as well as plans for national reforestation. The Prime Minister then went on to state that Jamaica, despite its current economic situation, has in fact enhanced its NDCs. We've enhanced our NDCs and have in fact again commenced preparation for year 2050 long-term emissions reduction and climate resilient strategy. Now, the Prime Minister made some really nice speeches. He made a really nice speech there. However, the facts on the ground in Jamaica betray him and his administration as not having climate change at the front of their mind, or either having at the front of their mind the preparation of the nation for the future impacts of climate change. Now, the Prime Minister can speak as glowingly as he wants of the enhanced plans and other such things, but his administration still seeks to promote mining operations in areas of the island which are critical to our national survival, especially as the impacts of climate change become more real. As an example, over the past few years, there was the controversy where the boundaries of the cockpit country area were being redrawn, and had they been redrawn in such a way that the JLP government was asking for, it would have allowed mining to have taken place in an area that houses most of our water. And it should be common knowledge to us all by now that climate change is going to greatly affect the amount of rainwater we have. So whatever water we have in this island is a scarce and rare product, and we need to maintain it at all costs. We have also seen the continued increase, and this is across parties, the continued increase in motor vehicles, motor cars, and it shouldn't be lost on us that cars that hold 1 and 2 people, they are a key driver in global greenhouse gas emissions. So the more cars on the road, the more greenhouse gas being emitted. Both parties have been really promoting that, while at the same time they have been making life really hard for public transportation, for mass transit. And mass transit is one of the easiest and cheapest ways to reduce national greenhouse gas emissions, because you have less people using cars. As opposed to 20 people driving 20 cars, you would have 20 people on a bus. Therefore, less greenhouse gases would be emitted. We are also seeing the destruction of mangrove forests, all in the name of quote-unquote development. And mangrove forests are a major carbon capture basin. So any greenhouse gas that is emitted, mangrove forests would suck them all up and keep them in their roots and keep them in their branches and whatnot. By destroying the mangrove forests, what we are doing is not only getting rid of that basin, so any greenhouse gases being emitted will just go up into the atmosphere and destroy us, but we are also releasing the greenhouse gases that have been stored up in these mangrove forests. So we're doubly cutting our own throats in the name of development. And all of that is to say that any talk that the Prime Minister makes at this conference of us being leaders in climate resilience is just hypocrisy. It's rank hypocrisy. Climate change will affect us in ways we cannot begin to imagine if we do not start making plans for it. And it is critical that the people push both the government and the opposition to take this matter seriously. We must organize ourselves and demand action. There's no more talking when it comes to environmental protection, and we must insist that the historically major emitters of carbon and other greenhouse gases divvy up. They provide technology transfer and they provide the infrastructure development, because anything less will either see Jamaica go totally underwater or become totally uninhabitable due to extreme heat, both of which are going to happen due to climate change. Finally, we end with a story from Nationwide News titled, "Central Government, Not Members of Parliament, Should Be Responsible for Citizens' Welfare. Pauwell." Now, in his constituency submission, opposition Member of Parliament Philip Pauwell made the call for the central government to take a more active role in citizen welfare. The Member of Parliament noted that the current state of welfare, which sees constituents visiting their Member of Parliament not only as the first point of inquiry, but also with the expectation of welfare, has created a system of total patronage and has seen the Member of Parliament focusing on that patronage instead of the needs of the constituency, such as development of key sectors. Mr. Pauwell then went on to call for the ending of the Constituency Development Fund and the strengthening of state agencies to ensure that citizens' welfare needs are met by the central authority, so that members of Parliament can focus on what he deems as more meaningful tasks. Now, what Philip Pauwell says is true. The job of a Member of Parliament is not that of a patron, and welfare should be taken care of by the central government, or at the very least by the local government, the parish councils. However, we are in this position of patronage. We're in this position where members of Parliament act as patrons, not by random chance, but by pure design, and this scenario was designed and lovingly implemented by persons such as Philip Pauwell, that is, the members of Parliament. Now, we agree that this should end. The system of patronage is disgusting and it should end. But we remain very skeptical as to whether this will be acted on. After all, this is not the first time that this has been brought up. Even the JLP has raised this point in the past. The fact of the matter is that the system of patronage, that is politics, will not end anytime soon because it benefits the politicians and their paymasters, both of whom created this system that they thrive in. Now, if this system of patronage, of looking to the members of Parliament as a form of saviour or of tying oneself to either of the corrupt parties is to end, then quite frankly we must organise alternative movements and groups to challenge them and eventually usurp power from them. We at Lands are one such group. We are a group of young Jamaican leftists. We have created this movement to organise the Jamaican left, to provide a home for the Jamaican left, and to create plans and policies to better change this country, to create a better future for this country. And if you see yourself on the left in Jamaica, we really hope that you will consider joining us on this road. Once again, this is Alexander Scott, and you've been listening to Land's Weekly Update.